Okay, start.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Okay, so welcome to this class. I see Onyeka Francis is back, Oluwafemi is here, Emmanuel, Somadina, Prosper, um, Chris, Eric, and so on. Thank you guys for joining the class. So, so I guess we can start now, right, Kevin? Or do we wait for others?
Please go ahead.
All right. So a quick recap. Let me share my screen. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is that if you've been watching the repo that I spoke about last on Monday, you notice that I've made some changes. The first notable change that you can see is that I've added a contract directory. This is where you can, if you in case you are wondering how the contract looks, so so you can check it out. This is the student registry contract. You can see how the functions are being structured and all that. Maybe you want to play around with it. You can also look at that. The next thing you notice is that I created several branches so that we can follow up. So we have this assignments branch, which I'll talk about at the end of the class. Then we have the final code. This has the final code for the project. Then we have in class. This in class is what we are going to be. The in class branch is stopped as where we stopped on Monday. So what I want you guys to do is that if you've been following along, or if you don't have what we have from Monday, you can just clone this branch and you can check out to this in class branch. So that will take you up to speed to where we stopped in the previous class. So I shared the link to the repo on the class group chat on WhatsApp, so you can check that out easily. So I don't know. Are there any questions from the previous class that anybody wants to ask? Is there anybody that tried out something that didn't work, or was there any issues at all? So if everything is fine, can you leave like a thumbs up or something? So Don Chris says everything was fine. Oluwafemi says everything was fine. How are you, Francis? Okay, so Madina says everything was fine. Um, Prosper. To Wilfred, how are you?
I've not really been able to try anything, sadly. The national greeting, I don't know, it's still affecting my sight.
Okay, okay. No problem. But please do try some stuff out. So you can always go to the repo to look at it. And if you have any questions, you can always leave them on the group chat. So so let's get straight to it. So for today's class, we're going to be going more in depth. There are some things that we're going to be doing. Mainly, we're going to learn how to um so last class we went through the repo, we learned how to connect and disconnect a wallet. The next thing that we're going to be doing is that we're going to learn how to read read the balance of a connected user, and we're going to be fetching data, and we're going to be updating data in this class. So that's everything we are going to be doing today. So without further ado, we can start that up. So the first thing we are going to be doing today is how to get the balance of a connected user. So if you go to our code base, if you go to page.jsx, you notice that we have this balance component, which basically displays everything here. So we are going to be updating it so that it can read the connected users balance. So for that, we have this hook from Starknet React called use balance. So it's very easy to use as the other hooks that we've mentioned before. The first thing you need to do is that you need to import it from here. Can everyone see my screen well? Is it Zoom okay? Is Zoom okay? Yeah. Okay. So we have to first import it. So right here we import use balance from Starknet React. Then let's go back to the. So this is how we make use of it, like this. So we have to pass in an address. So the address, we don't want to be passing in the address manually. It should be it should be the address of the connected user. And who can remember how we can get the address of the connected user? What hook do we use? Can somebody unmute their mic and let me know? What hook?
Kai,
Yeah?
I'm not really sure, but I think use connect.
No, use connect is for connecting. Use
Okay.
disconnect is for disconnecting. So the hook to get the connected user is use accounts. Use accounts. So remember what we said? We said const and use account returns an address for us. So we can say use accounts like this. So this gets the connected user at any time for us. So instead of passing the address like this, we can just pass the address like this. And remember what I said, if the key and the value have the same name, you can just pass it like this instead. So this is ES7 JavaScript. So this is it. So let us console or log data like this, and let's see what we get. So if you come back to and we open our console, we get this weird thing. So yeah, while I was trying to do, you get this undefined first of all because we've not connected our wallet. So we need to connect that quickly. So connect it to your wallet. So you notice that it still shows us undefined. So I actually reached out to the Starknet React guys to tell them that I don't know, maybe I'm having maybe issues from my end, but it works when you you disconnect and reconnect. So you see that it comes out now. So I'm going to do more research on that and I'll tell you what was wrong, why we're not getting it the first time on the group chat. So for now, this is how it works for now. So basically, when you use the use balance hook, you get this object here where you can see the decimals, the formatted value, the symbol, and the value. So by default, it always fetches the Ethereum balance for us. But you can configure it in such a way that you can choose the token that you want as a balance. You can either choose ETH, Stack, or maybe you want to use USDT. So the way you do that is that you need to find the token contract address. So you can go to Voyager. So for this, I'm going to show you how we can, instead of Ethereum, we can see the value in STRK. So you just search STRK. Just, I think you have switch to Sepolia, STRK like this. So stack token. So you have the contract address right here. So you just, apart from passing in address, you pass in token. So token is optional, then you pass in the string like this. So if you go back to our browser and you clear, and we disconnect and connect again, you see that we now have a new object here, which is stack. So you see the symbol is strk, then we have the new value. So this is how you can make use of the use balance hook. So what we want is this formatted value. So how we can display it here, remember what I said, that if you are making use of JavaScript in JSX, you need to wrap it within curly braces like this. So we're going to be fetching data dot, we want to say if data is available, we want to render data dot formatted. We want to render data dot formatted, or we want to render 0. So strk. So this is what we are doing. So if we go back and refresh, we're going to have that error again. So it still shows 0, but if you disconnect and connect again, you see that the value changes. So we have one small thing that we should do. So it refreshes for some weird reason. So if you notice that the the decimal points are very long, and it's not really advisable. Maybe we want it to be like 2 or 3 decimal places. So there's a JavaScript thing that we could do, where we could, first of all, we could part, because it comes as a string. If you check it in your terminal, you see that the formatted comes as a string. So you need to convert it to a floating integer. So with decimal point. So there's this method in JavaScript, pass floats. So data dot formatted. So this just converts that string to a floating variable. So you use this method to fix. So yeah, this to fix, you will specify how many decimal places you want. So I'm going to specify 3 here. Then so when you connect your wallets to agents and disconnect and connect, so you see that we now have the value specified. I think let's try and solve this. So please, is there any question while I try and figure this out quickly? So is everyone clear on how to read the balance? Is everyone clear on that? If you have any questions, please you can speak up.
Sorry, sir. Just to be
Okay.
sure,
Yeah.
does Starknet React have TypeScript support?
Yes, it does. It does.
Oh,
But because I didn't want to like bore us with the types, that's why I wanted to make it as simple as possible. So that's why I made it. You can actually opt for the TypeScript version.
okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. um, So yeah. Um. I'm coming. Let me just get this GitHub. Let me go operation using. Um. So. Two point 9.0. Um, um, let me check this. So, if you have any questions while we have this loading, I think it's best I just do this on my own. Then I can let you guys know how far I come. So we can just move to the next thing. So the main thing is that you just know how to use the hook. So that's how the hook is expected to work. So after calling the hook, you get this balance, you get this data variable and error variable, which you can make use of. That's how you get the balance of a connected user at any time. So the next thing that we are going to be looking at is how to read, from the contract. And So first thing we're going to be reading is how to fetch students. We're going to see how to fetch the student because these students are dummy students. They are dummy data. So we want to be able to fetch it from the contract. And if we go to our contract on Voyager, if under read contract, you can see this function get all students. If we query it, you see that okay, right now we don't have any students because this is a new contract. For another thing, I actually deployed a new contract because I fixed something. So this is the new contract address. So let me send it to the group chat. Um, so that's the new contract address. So there are no students, so it returns an empty array. So let's start that. How to read from a contract. And we're going to be doing that in our page.gsx. So the first thing that we are going to do is that we are going to be making use of a hook called use contract read. So we have const. I'll tell you what it returns in a bit. So we have const use contract use contract read. So use contract read takes in an object and it takes in some parameters. The first thing it takes is you have to pass in a function name. So the name of the function that you want to call. And according to Voyager, the name of the function we are calling is get all students. So get underscore all underscore students like this. The next thing that we need to pass in is the arguments. So args like this. So according to Voyager, we're not passing in any arguments into this function. We just need to call it. Unlike the get student, where we need to pass in an index. So we're not passing in any argument. So we're going to just leave it as an empty array. The next thing that we're passing is the ABI. So ABI, which we have specified before. Then the next thing is the address. So we'll call it from the contract address variable, which we specified in lib.js in data.js right here. So it's calling it directly from here. So after we save this, so we need to call so we need to so what does use contract read return? It returns a data a data variable. It returns is loading also. That means that's when it is loading the data. Then it also returns a refetch function. If you notice in our application, we have this button called refresh students. So instead of refreshing our page, you can just refresh students. So I will show us how to use that later. Then it also returns is fetching. Is fetching. So these are the three major variables that it returns. So you can actually rename these variables that it returns. A reason why you would want to rename it is because assuming what if in this same file you want to make use of the use balance hook, and you know that in the use balance hook it also returns data, it also returns its loading, and also returns error. So you want something where and just okay let me show you instead of talking, let me show you what I mean exactly. So that was in the address bar component. No, so in the balance component. So assuming we have something like this here, where we need like this. So you can see that we have an error here where we have data. So instead of doing like this, the way you could do it is that you can rename this to all students like this, all students. You could rename this variable to is loading students like this, is loading students. So you can rename this to refetch students like this, then it's fetching students, right? Are we clear? Please, can you guys unmute and confirm? Are you following along? Wilfred, Don Chris, are you following along? How about you, Don Chris? So Madina, okay. So trying hard to, we'll go over again as always. Again. Okay, so Wilfred, what don't you understand? Sorry. Is it still the national greeting or
Uh, I don't think we should be worried for now because I could not complete Monday's class, so there will obviously be some things I don't understand.
okay? All right, no problem. So let's just continue. So so this is how we can rename. So we don't need this. So we have all these variables available to us. So let us see the kind of data that comes out. So if we do console.log and we console.log all students like this, so let's see how it comes out to us. So if you come back here, right, so okay, you see that it comes out here as an empty array. Are you seeing? So it's empty. So we're going to write to it in a while. So what we'll just do is so we can replace this dummy students dot length with all students dot length like this. Then the students table, instead of passing dummy students, we can pass in students. So you can pass in all students. Then if if there's all students, that's when we want it to pass in all students. If not, it should pass we pass an empty array. So that should be it. So you see that we don't have a table because there are no students, right? So what we'll handle now is the refresh. In order to use this refresh function here, is as easy as just we have this function handle refresh students, this prop. So in student table control, in the button refresh, we have a button. Yeah, so refresh, we have this refresh button student. So we have an on click prop here. So it depends on the prop being passed here. So we can just so right here, when we are passing the prop, we can just it's as simple as calling refresh here like this. So this is how is um refresh students. So this is how we can refresh. So whenever that button is clicked, it's going to refresh the students. Let's see. So if I click it, you see that it's handling the refresh. So it's refreshing. If you click it again, it's the same thing that happens, right? So now the next thing we are going. So this is how you can read data from the contract. So I don't know if there are any questions so far. Is there any question, Chris, Prosper, Williams? Is there any question? If you are following, please can you leave it like a thumbs up? If you want me to go over anything, please feel free to say it. Just let me know. Can mute, raise your hand or something.
Thank you so far. You've been trying, but I would
Okay.
really appreciate if you can go over it again.
Okay. So let me just go over it again. So so we're talking about how to read. You want to read from the contract. So Starknet contracts are made up of two functions. We have the read and the write functions. So we want to get all students in an array. So that is a read function. And if you go to the contract on Voyager, you can see that the function is under read contracts. Sorry, no, this one. So where we have, according to Voyager, we have two read functions. We have get students and get all students. So get all students is meant to return an array of students for us. So if you look at the contract, you can see that it returns an array for us, right? So we need to call this particular function. And because it's a read function, that's why we are making use of contract read from Starknet React. So what does Starknet React read collect? Remember, if you are calling the use balance hook, it takes in the address, and if you want, you can pass in the token that you want to get the balance of. So, but for here, we have four arguments. We need to pass in the function name as defined in the contract and the ABI. The next thing we need to pass in is the arguments that make up the function. But because our function does not have any arguments, that's why we are passing in an empty array. Assuming we are calling get student, we need to pass in an index. Maybe we can pass in 1 or 2 because it's an integer, you get. So assuming maybe the contract has like you need a string, maybe the name, the first name, maybe you need to also pass in the age. So you pass it in like this, right? But because our function does not collect any arguments, we are passing in an empty array like this. The next thing it needs is the ABI that we've defined before. So we've defined it in our ABI file here. So this is our ABI. So we're exporting it. So we need to use it here. The next thing we're going to be passing in is the contract address. So that's how we pass it. So use contract read returns some variables to us. It returns data, it's loading, a refresh function, and it's refreshing. So data is the data that is being returned after reading the contract. Is loading is a Boolean value. So when during the process of fetching data, is loading is set to true. After fetching the data, or if there's an error, it sets is loading to false. Then the refetch is a function that helps us to refresh data from the contract. So it's a function that we can call. Then is fetching is also a Boolean value. So when during the process of refetching data, is fetching is set to true. If not, it is set to false. So you see this column also, and this is where how we rename values come in. We can rename the values like this. So that's what we are doing. So we are constantly logging the data that we get, and we are passing in, instead of passing in dummy students, we are passing in the correct data we are supposed to pass, which is the data gotten from the contract. That's what we do here and here. So for the refresh students, we just call the function to refresh it whenever that button is clicked. Do we understand? Do you understand? So Madina, okay. So yeah. So if we are all on the same page, the next thing that we need to do is that we need to write to the contract. So we need to write to the contract so we can see more students. So also in this table control, we need to pass all students. So we have all students dot length. If I should pass 0. So yeah. So so if we click on this add student, a form pops up for us. So we need to we need to handle this form. So where are we going to do? We are going to do it in the all stable students control components, because that is where we have our form. So this is our form. So let me explain these components a bit. So we have this popover, this use ref. This use ref is basically it basically helps us with the opening and closing of the modal. So it's a React thing, so we don't really need to pay attention to that. Then we have this handle submit. So this is what we are going to be working. We're going to be working on this handle submit and others. Then we have this so this is, so you see where I highlighted, this is what shows up. It contains this refresh students, add students, and also the pagination. But the pagination is not available because we don't have any students, so there's nothing to paginate. So then we have this dialog. This dialog is the form that is being rendered whenever we click it. So you see how the ref is targeted here. So whenever the add student button is clicked, you see that add student popover dot current dot show modal. So as we are calling the show modal, we're calling the show modal method. So whenever that is clicked, this is open for us. So within the dialog, we have a form that has several inputs, such as the surname, the first name, the phone number, and the age, right? So that's everything that is here. Then we have the button to submit the form, add students, which calls the handle submit function that we defined earlier. So let us start. So the first thing you want to do whenever you are writing to a contract is that you need to initialize the contract. So contract initialization. So how do we initialize the contract? So what we do is that we make use of a hook called use contract. So, and it returns a value to us called contract. So it's going to be equal to use contract, and that is from React, Starknet React, use contract. So this use contract takes in an object. The first thing that it takes is the ABI. So we need to pass in the ABI that we have defined in our utils. The next thing is the address. So contract address. So those are the two things that we need. So this is all for contract initialization. The next thing is we need to do that. We need to define a call, like the calls, like whenever we whenever we so you know writing to the contract is a transaction. So we are making a call to the blockchain. We're making a call. So we need to define that call that we're making. So in this instance, we are trying to make a call using this function. So if you go to our contract and you go to the right contract tab, you see this add students. So this is a write function. So we're going to be making a call using this function from the contract add students, which takes in the following arguments: first name, last name, phone number, age, and is active, right? So going back, we need to define a call. So we have const calls is equal to, so we need to make use of something called use memo. Use memo. Use memo helps us in the short of it, use memo helps us for optimization. So use memo like this. So yeah. So within the use memo, we're going to be saying that we want to in the end of the use memo, we want to return a populated contract. So we do contract dots. We have a method called populate transaction. So we are populating a transaction, and we need to pass in the function that we are calling. In this instance, it's not public transaction. We need to we use square brackets, sorry. Then in the square brackets, we write the name of the function. So we are calling add students like this, right? So then you now use circle brackets. Then you need to now pass in the arguments. You pass in the arguments. So normally the normal we would have done it is that we'll use an array, right? And we'll now pass in so if you notice up here, this is the state variables. Anytime we write in any of the input fields, these state variables are updating. So let me show you that in practice. So we have surname, first name, phone number, and age. And right now they are set as an empty string. They're set as an empty string. So if you have your is an extension you need to download to be able to see this, but you don't really need to see it right now. So I'll just show it to you. So there's this React Dev Tools. So in components, we can select the form. So and in the form, you notice that we have these 5 state variables. So if I type in here, okay, you see how the state is updating automatically based on what I type in. And if I come here and I type in Joe, okay, if I come, I don't think, okay, so if I still come here and type in Caleb, you see that it populates. So the reason, let me say something that I didn't do. Okay, it's supposed to work. Okay, yeah. So if I come into the dev tools directly and I type in the value I want, maybe Kevin, like this, I press enter, you see that it updates the UI too. So you see that React and the form, they are in sync together. So that's what we do. So that's what we did here with these state variables. So that we can have easy access to the values that have been passed in, right? So normally we need to pass in an array and would use maybe surname, first name, and so on. But the problem is that right now these variables are saved as strings. They are strings. And in Cairo does not make use of strings. They make use of something called felt 252 or byte arrays. Yeah, or byte arrays. And according to our contract, we need to pass in felt 252. Felt 252, not a string. So we need something that can convert our strings to felt 252 and convert our integers to U8. You get, so that it can be compatible with Cairo, because we are pushing it to the blockchain, and the blockchain, those are the variables that the blockchain recognizes. They don't recognize strings or integers and so on. But lucky for us, Starknet React has this tool that we can use to convert our variables for us to the suitable types. So this is this thing that we can import from Starknet JS actually, called call data. So call data has a method called compile. So with this compile, we can pass in an array of the values that we have. So the first thing that this contract takes is the first name, and here it is saved as first name. So we pass in first name like this. The next thing that we pass in is the surname that we have saved up. Let me lower this so we can all see it. Surname. The next thing we pass in is the phone number, and the next thing is age, and we need to pass and is active. So it's active. Is a Boolean value. So that is true or false. But if you want to pass it using React in your front end, you can either pass it as 0 or 1. So by default, we want that every student that is created should be active automatically. So we pass in 1, because 1 is like for false. So true is 1, false is 0. So that's how it works. So for this use memo, we want this calls this calls variable to be, we want it to be reinitialized every time. We want it to be reinitialized every time contract changes, or or the user address. So we need to also make use of the address. So const. So please can somebody on my how do we get the address from how do we get the address of a connected user on Starknet in Starknet React? What hook do we use? Can somebody just to show that we are following? What hook do we use? Yeah, we use that's very prosper. We use the user account hook. So we pass in he'll use the user account hook. So we want anytime the contract changes or the so let's instead of address, let's rename this. Let's call it user address. So anytime or user, let's call it user. So anytime the contract or the user or the first name or the surname or the phone number or the age changes, then we need to put a check here so that it doesn't compile. So whenever the username changes, this line of code is run. So that means it's compiling. But what if when you are typing the first name, as you're typing the first name, you've not yet typed out the surname or the phone number. So it's always compiling and it will throw an error because all these variables, the first name, surname, and phone number and age, they are not all available at the same time. So we can add a simple check here that maybe we have a variable called is input valid. Is input valid. Then we have so it's going to be a Boolean value. So so it's going to be true if there's a user and there's a contract and first name dot length is greater than 0 and surname dot length is greater than 0 and phone number dot length is greater than 0 and age and there's an age. So it's going to be true when all of these are available. So if in the case where they are not all available, so if is not valid input, we want to return an empty array instead. So this is how we can define our call. So this is the contract call array. So I'm going to show you how that looks. So if we come here, use memo is not defined, so we need to import it from React. So you see that it has been imported here. So if we click on add students, let me show you. Okay. So okay, sorry. Okay, so you see that we have this state variable here called memo. Let me put this to the side so we can easily see it. We have this memo array. So if I'm typing here, let's say Salaki, you see that memo, because we don't have the first name, phone number, and age here, you see that memo is still an empty array. But let's see, Ushoke, the phone number 10905189629628. Then let's say the age, you want it to be 32. So it's supposed to change. Okay, it's because we have not connected our wallet yet. So let's connect our wallet first of all. So you see that check is in place so that we don't unnecessarily compile. So let's do that again. So let me just Jonathan again. like this 32. So you see that it was when we imputed the age, when everything was complete. You see that is when the memo came out. So in the memo, we can see the contract address, the entry point, and the call data. You see that everything has been converted for us, right? So this is a FEL 252 now. So to show that it's actually a FEL 252, for 0 we have Jonathan. We have this tool in Starknet called Starkutils. So if you come here and I paste in that stuff, you can see that the string that comes out is Oshoke. Can you see it? And that's what we have. Right? Okay, that's because we need to pass in. I'm coming. So I think we need to pass in a first name first. So okay, so yeah, that's why. So the first name is the first name that we are passing in. So this is for Jonathan. So if we copy this also and check stack utils, you can see that Jonathan comes out. So this is how you can see that everything works so perfectly. So we are done with the call array. So I don't know if there's any question regarding the call array from anybody. I know it's a bit complex, but if you go over the video, I'm sure it's something you can be able to wrap your head around. But if you have any questions, can you just ask? Does anybody have any question? Hi, Chisom. You joined the class a bit late. I hope all is well. Chisom, are you there? Mm. Hi, Don Chris. What's up? You're not really talking today. How is it going?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just having some network issues here, but so I don't know for today. The class has not been good. Yeah.
Okay. But at any point, whenever you go through the lecture material and you have any questions, always feel free to text on the group chat or message me privately and I'll clear up any confusions that you have.
Okay.
So
Thank
how
you.
about Prosper, Oluwafemi, Emmanuel? Is there any question? Uzubechi, Eric, Chisom. So I guess we can just continue if there are no questions.
Good
So
evening, sir.
good evening. How you doing?
Very fine, sir.
Yeah, how is
But
it going?
not really fine. I'm having network issue.
Okay, no problem. For those that have network issues, you can just refer to the video, the recording, then ask any question. On Friday, we are going to be doing a recap. So by Friday, everyone should have watched everything. So you have to come on Friday prepared with your questions so that I can answer everything completely. So we can continue. So 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 now that we have defined our calls, the next thing that we need to do is that we need to make use of the hook called use contract rights. We had use contract read, so we're using use contract right. I will show you what it returns later. So use contract rights like this. Then you pass in an object with the calls like this. So like this. So it references these calls that we have here. So as I said, ES7, you can just do it like this directly. So what does use contract rights return? So the first thing that it returns a write async function. So this is the function that we call whenever. So this is the function we need to call whenever maybe that add students button is clicked. So this is what actually calls the add student function. Then we now have a data which is the write data. So the data, so we can just change this to write data. Then we have is pending. Then we can just call write is pending like this. So yeah, then the next thing that we need to do is that we have another hook called use wait for transaction. So this hook, let's look at what the hook does. So use wait for transaction. Okay, it's called use transaction script. So in the newer version, so in the newer version of Starknet React, it's called use transaction receipt. For our version, it's called use wait for transaction. So this hook is used to fetch a single transaction receipt. So to know whether the transaction went through or not, so to know the status of the transaction. So we just const, and this hook returns some variables. It returns is loading. It also returns data. So you see how we have multiple data. That's why it's good to rename it. So we can call this wait data because we are actually waiting for the receipt. So use wait transaction. So we have, what does it collect? So we need to collect a hash. So a transaction hash. Whenever you write to the blockchain, you are always giving a transaction hash. That hash serves as like an ID, a transaction ID for you. So if you go to Voyager, you can use the transaction hash to get more information about the transaction that occurred. If any operation that is used that you carry out with your wallet, it always returns a transaction hash for you. So if I send maybe Stack to you, I can send you the transaction hash so that you can go and check it on Voyager to know the status of the transaction, whether it went through or not. So yeah, for the hash, how do we get the hash? The way we get the hash is that we get it from this write data. So after the write function is done, we get this write data. So we have write data. If there's write data, we want to read the transaction hash from it. Then another thing we need to pass in the watch. So to watch for it. So that is true. So yeah, that's it. So the next thing that we need to do is that we need to actually call this write async function. And it's as simple as just going to our handle submit function here. After event or prevent divorce, we just call it write async like this. And that is all. So let's try it out and see what happens. So I have this. If you go to your code, you can see this commented out code. So we uncomment this. So this is actually for the loading state of the button, so you can see what is happening. So we just have a loading variable with a message. So we can just, so this is for the button content. So if write is pending, that's if like the transaction is ongoing, we should say sending. If not, you should say waiting for confirmation. If wait is loading, that means we are waiting for the receipt. I'm coming. So we need to wait is loading like this. Wait is loading. So if we are waiting for the receipt, we want a loading state with this message, waiting for confirmation. Then if we have wait data and if there's wait data and wait data of status is equal to rejected, we need to change the text to transaction rejected. If there's wait data, we can say transaction confirmed. If none of this is so, we need to return add students. So what we just do is so you come to the button that has this add students. Instead of this, you remove it and you uncomment this out. Then now let us try. So let us try this out. But before we try it out, is there any question? Is everybody following along? And if you're not following along, please you can unmute and talk about it. So if you're following along, please just leave a thumbs up in the chat. Please leave a thumbs up in the chat if you're following. Is everything clear? I can't see your reaction. Prosper, Don Chris, Somadina. Let me know what's happening. Okay. So yeah, let's try it out. So add students. So let us add so the surname, let's use my details. Oshoke. Let's use this number. Then the age, let's use 18, right? So we click add students. So we have this error. Hash loader is not defined. So we've not imported that. So we need to just do that quickly. So let's reject the transaction first. So let's click on add students. Let's do again. Salaki, Shuke, this 18. So yeah.
Not connected your wallet.
Okay, yeah. That's why it's showing that error. So add students again. So it's kind of just but once it works, it works. So 18 then. So you see that we have this loading. So this is when it is sending. So if we click on confirm, you see that it changes. We are waiting for confirmation, transaction confirmed. Then it's supposed to close this modal for us. So we need to so I think we should update this to close the modal for us. So add students popover dot current dot I think we can just do that later. So yeah, so transaction confirmed. So you notice that here we have an update. Now we have one student total, and if we check our console, we see that the array now has one thing inside. So we can see the age has been updated, the first name has also been updated, is active, last name, phone number, everything has been updated, right? Why is this showing FN like this? It looks weird, but let us see. I'm coming. This is not how the okay. Let me just refresh the page and see. So the first name looks very weird. So does the age. So I don't know. Okay, let's just leave that at that first. So the next thing we need to work on is how to show it on the table. With I think there's a problem. Maybe the problem is from the contract. Can you guys just give me a second? Let me look at this. So I think the problem should be from the contract. So when we add students, we want the name, phone number. Okay, so the first name, surname, phone number, age. Okay, I think maybe we are not using the right contract address. That could be 69. Let me look at that. So if that is it, maybe we are not using the correct ABI. So this is what you're going to be doing most of the time. You're going to be debugging because it's not all the time that your code might work out the way you want it to. So yeah, I've seen it. So our ABI is not correct. That is why it's like that. So I think yeah. So if we let's refresh this and see. So this is to give us okay. You can see that everything works out now. We have our ID, the age, the first name, last name, and phone number. So you see, the error was from my part. I didn't import the right API because I told you that I redeployed the contract, so I didn't change the API because the API is actually a new API. So now the next thing we need to work on is the information they are not showing on this place. So we need to figure out why that is. So coming, can you give me I'm coming. So please just give me a second. Okay. So yeah. Uh, hey guys, sorry for the breaking interruption. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys see my screen? Leave a thumbs up. All right. So what we can see now. So the next thing we need to display our data on the table. So what we will do is that we go to students table row like this. So the problem that we're having right now is that we don't have it as students.id. I'm coming. Let me look at this thing. Well, okay. So yeah, the first problem that we have is that we need to render the ID students.id, but the reason why it's not working is because we notice that we have this this represents this ID comes as a U64. So we need to convert it to a string, to something that is recognizable by JavaScript. So what we could do is we have what we could do is we just in student or ID, we call this function to string like this. So if we come back, you notice that the ID now shows up. So we can see the ID perfectly. So, but the next thing is the surname. Why is the surname not working? The reason why the surname is not working is because we are reading student or surname, and from the contract it does not come as surname, it comes as L name. So I left all these things purposely so that we can see how we can edit code. So that's how. So now we know we need student or L name. So we do student or L name like this, and if we go back, it still does not work because we have the value as a fels 252. So I have this function that I spoke about in the last class called fels 252 to string that is in the helpers folder. So this converts fels 252 to a string. So if we go back, so what we just do is that we cause this and use that. So fels 252 to string, then we pass in the value like this. So you see that it has converted successfully for us. And this is the same thing that we'll do for the first name. So it's not first name, it's F name like this. So we use the function, the helper function, and we call it like this. Then you see that it converts it successfully for us. Then for the phone number is a bit different because the way we will do it is that we'll just, because if you notice, the only problem that we have is this n, and we just need to append a 0 to the beginning based on the data that comes in. So what we'll just do is that we write 0 and students dot phone number like this dot to string. So that takes care of that n at the end. So if we go back, we see that the phone number has been appended. The next thing is the age. So we have student dot age dot to string like this. So if we save it, so you see that our data is successfully rendering. So I don't know if there's any question so far. Is everyone being carried along? Is there any confusion or anything at all? If you are clear, can you leave a thumbs up? Chisom, Don Chris, Martina. If you want me to go over anything, please just let me know. Okay. So Martina, how are you? Emmanuel.
I reacted, so I'm following.
All right. So the next thing that we need to do is, what's the next thing we need to do? So if we click on this refresh, we don't really see any. So we need to improve our UX. It's a very minor thing. So we just need to show whenever the data is being loaded, we want to show like a loading state. So that's very simple for us to do. So we just go to page.jsx. Then remember that whenever we are reading, we have this is loading variable. So what we could do is that we only want to show this div whenever is loading is false. So we can just cut this off. So we want a situation when whenever it's loading, or whenever we are loading students or we are fetching students, that's when we want to show a loading state. So for that loading, we just import our loading component. We have a loading component. The same thing that we use in that button. So we pass in the message of, we say fetching students. Fetching students like this. but whenever it's not loading, that's when we want to display that other div. So if we save this and we go back, so you see that now if we refresh our page, so you see that we have that loading state, and if we want to refresh, we still have that loading state. So that gives us more better UX, a better user experience to know what is actually going on. So with everything complete, so let us test our application again. So alternatively, you can also do it in such a way that you can also tinker with the application in such a way that whenever the user is not connected, whenever the user is not connected, we don't want this table to show. It should show, please connect your wallet first before making use of the application. But when it is connected, that's when we want to show the remaining parts of the application. So I will explain that assignment. That will be an assignment that I'll give tomorrow on Friday. So let's try everything again. If we connect our wallets like this, our connect functionality works and our disconnect functionality works also. If we also connect again, our balance works, but it has a small bug which I'll look into later. We can also read the total students available. Then we can refetch our students. Then let's work on the add student. Let's add another student. Let's say Jonathan, Elena Jonathan. Then the phone number should be, we're using Nigerian phone numbers. So let's say 32. So we click on add students. Our button is working. So if we confirm, so I think if we refresh our students, you see that our students are complete. So you can keep on adding students, refreshing the students, and everything works smoothly. So that's all that we hope to achieve in this class. So let's look at our README. We implemented this connect functionality. We were able to get the user balance. We imported the API, got an RPC URL. We're able to fetch students, handle refresh students, and add students. So congratulations to you all. You all now know how to now know the basics of front-end integration in the Starknet ecosystem. And I hope this class was impactful and you really got a lot out of it, and you can be able to use it in future applications that you might build. So I don't know if there's any question from today's class that you have. If you want me to go over anything, please just say the word and I will. So is there any question so far? Did you feel like maybe I was rushing or anything? I really want your feedback on it.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for the classes. I think you did very well and you explained everything very well. But for me, I think it's something that like some of us that are new to JavaScript and needs logic, something that we have to go over by ourselves to get more of it. That's my
Okay.
own.
Yeah. Okay, so what I want every one of us to do is that the recording is going to be published on live. I want everybody to please just go through the recording, did very well. Maybe take a biro and a notepad and just write down any questions that you might have at all. No matter how basic you feel like it may sound, I will address everything on Friday. So if you have any question or you don't really understand why this is like that or this is like that, I'll answer all the questions to the best of my knowledge. And if I cannot answer it, I will do research and get back to you on it. So that's the assignment for today. So just go over the today's class and Monday's class and let me know how it goes for you guys. So I don't know if Kevin is on the call. Kevin is not on the call. So there's no questions, right? So one thing I encourage is that you learn in public. So I notice that some people they make tweets about what they've learned. So is a very good habit that every one of us should go over. So make tweets. If you have, yeah, if you have my Twitter handle, so you can tag me, I will repost, I will comment and all that. So I also want you guys to tinker around with what we've done so far. I'm going to push what we've done into this class to the in-class branch so you can see what we did in class today. So yeah, any question at any time between now and Friday, you can also drop it in the group chat and I'll address it speedily. So thank you all for joining to this class. I really appreciate all of you that came back, such as Don Chris, Chisom, Maxwell, Oluwafemi, Uzubichi, Peace. I think Peace, like, is this your first time joining the class, Peace? Prosper, Somadina, Weaver, Wilfred. Thanks so much for joining the class. So you can message the group for anything or you can text me privately. I would answer any questions. Thank you very much for joining to this class. I really, really appreciate it. All right. Take care. Have a good night.